everyone, it's Thursday. So as you know, I've recently been asking for requests just so that I can try and incorporate the content that you guys want to see. And one of the very first ones that came through was for one of those little cats that you can turn inside out. Now I've done a couple of patterns similar to that before, like hatching eggs and that kind of thing. So the concept's really simple. But then I thought this would be a great chance for me to do a very beginner-friendly version of that reversible cat plush. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Okay, so for anyone new here, the very first thing that I do in my patterns is I break down the design into the pieces that we're going to be needing for today. Okay, so how this sort of pattern works is you actually make an outside shell as well as an inside shell, and we're going to be creating that all as one piece. I'll be using two different colors just because it makes it a lot simpler, but you can of course make yours all in the same color. So that is what the main body piece is actually going to look like. And then what we'll actually do is we'll be taking this piece and tucking it inside, and that's part one. We will also then be making two little paws, and the way we do that is we make them one color on one side and one color on the other side, and that is really easily done by making them in two separate pieces and just stitching them together. So we're going to need to make 4 feet. We're going to do those as part 2. We will then need to be making our ears, which are going to be just a very basic cute little triangle shape, and we actually need 4 of those as well. So we'll make 2 of those in our top color and 2 of those in our bottom color. And then we will make 2 little tails, one for the outside and one for the inside. So we'll make those pieces as part 3. So we're going to work this in stages. In terms of what you're going to need in tools and materials. So first things first, we're going to talk about yarn. For the yarn for this project, you're going to need 2 main colors. So the colors I'm going to be using, I'm on kind of a pastel kick at the moment. I'm going to be using a yellow and a purple. And you'll see that I'm choosing 2 yarns that are the same brand. They are the same ply. They are both 100% acrylic. And if we look at the label, there's all kinds of information available on the label. We can see that both yarns recommend using a 4mm needle. Now this is also sometimes listed as a hook size, so that's how I know that those 2 yarns can be used together for this project. So you are also going to need a little bit of black just to stitch on your face, and you also might like a little bit of pink depending on sort of what kind of face you would like. But those are the 3 colors you're going to need, so 2 main colors and a little bit of black to stitch on your face. So from there we have to work out what hook we're going to need for this project. So both yarns recommend a 4mm hook, which is one like this. It is a US size G or 6. Now, if you don't have a 4mm hook, you can also use either a 3.5mm hook or a 4.25mm hook. So we've kind of got one size up and one size down. You'll just find if you use the smaller hook, your stitches will be tighter and your overall cat will end up smaller. And if you use a larger hook, there is a chance of having sort of a slightly more open weave, so with those holes that you see in crochet sometimes. And you also might find that your cat toy ends up a little bit bigger. So that's kind of the difference that different hook sizes make. So for the purposes of today, I am going to be using the recommended, sorry, I have a preference for the smaller hook size, but for the sake of today, I'm going to be using my 4mm hook because that is what the labels of my yarn recommends. You're also going to need a pair of scissors. You're going to need some pins and needles. So I've got a little pin cushion there. You're going to need a very, very small amount of stuffing. In fact, even this much that I'm holding is probably a little bit too much, just because we're going to put that in the feet. And I think that's it. All right, so now we're going to get started. Okay, so in terms of the stitches you're going to need for this week's pattern, you are going to need to know how to chain. One of the very first things we all learn as crocheters, just grabbing that yarn and pulling it through to form a neat little chain. You are going to need to know how to single crochet. That is the main stitch used in today's pattern. So insert hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on hook, and there is our single crochet. In terms of reading the pattern, what you're going to need to know how to do is basic increases and basic decreases. So an increase is just worked when we put 2 single crochet into the same stitch. So if the pattern tells me to do an increase in the next stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops on hook for the first stitch, and then I'm going to insert my hook back through that same stitch and work a second single crochet in that stitch. So there we've got 2 stitches worked in the same stitch, and that is an increase. And the other technique that we'll be using in this pattern is a decrease. So a decrease is when we take 2 stitches and turn them back into 1. So we do that by inserting our hook through the first stitch, yarning over, pulling up a loop, and then we insert our hook into the second stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You'll see we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over again and pull through all 3 loops. And you'll see that the result is we've got 1 stitch left on top, but we worked into both stitches in the piece. I'm going to be using magic rings as the foundation for all my pieces. Now, there are so many videos out there that show you how to make those far better than I will ever be able to explain it. However, I remember trying to learn how to do a magic ring the first time, so I just wanted to show you a quick alternative that you can use instead of a magic ring if it's just not gelling with you yet, and that's completely fine because I think it happens to all of us. So all of my pieces will start with a magic ring with 6 single crochet in them. So the way you do that if you don't want to do a magic ring is we're going to chain 2. 1 and 2, okay? And then in that very first chain, put all 6 of the single crochet into that same stitch. Just like that. So that is the exact same thing as a magic ring. You can see that you do end up with a little bit more of a hole in the middle than you would with a magic ring, but that's fine. Like, that does not take away at all from any part of this pattern. So you can choose to use that method instead. Okay, so with that all sorted out, we are just going to get started. So I'm going to be grabbing my first color, and what you're going to do is create your magic ring and work 6 single crochet into that ring. You can also choose to use the alternate method that I just showed you. I apologize if this video is a little bit longer than usual. I'm trying really hard to just really explain every step of this pattern. So there's our 6 single crochet inside of our magic ring, and then we just pull that tail and we end up with that nice closed loop. Okay, so for the next row, I've put the instructions on the screen. So you can see that it says 6 open bracket, increase, close bracket, and then it's got a number in brackets at the end, which is 12. So how you interpret that is we're going to do an increase 6 times around the ring, and that is going to mean that we do 12 stitches in total. So for our first increase in the first stitch, we've worked our first 2 stitches in that first stitch, and we're going to repeat that 5 more times around until we've put 2 stitches in each of those stitches. So that's roughly what your piece should look like. So the next row is we're going to work 6 repeats of a single crochet and then an increase in the next stitch for 18 stitches in total. Right, so one thing you can get in the habit of doing is at the end of each round is count backwards from your hook until you reach the next stitch you're going to be working in, and just make sure that that number matches that number at the end of each row. So the number at the end of the row we just worked was 18, so there should be 18 stitches around the piece. And there is in this case. So the next row we're going to work 6 repeats of 2 single crochet and then an increase for 24 stitches in total. For row 5, we're going to work 6 repeats of 3 single crochet and then an increase, and that's going to result in 30 stitches around. So for row 6, we're going to do 6 repeats of 4 single crochet and then an increase, which should result in 36 stitches around the outside of your piece. You'll note that we're working up a flat disc shape, and then we'll start working down to give it the 3 dimensions. And then for row 7, we're going to do 6 repeats of 5 single crochet and then an increase, which should leave you with 42 stitches on the outside. Right, so we've worked up our flat disc. The rows are going to change slightly now. So for row 8, we're going to do 3 repeats of 13 single crochet and then an increase, which should give you 45 stitches around. For row 9, we're going to do 3 repeats of 14 single crochet and then an increase to get up to 48 stitches. For row 10, we're going to do 3 repeats of 15 single crochet and then an increase, bringing us up to 51 stitches. Okay, so for rows 11 through 16, so that's for the next 6 rows, you're just going to work 51 single crochet around the outside of your piece. And the fastest way to do this, rather than counting to 51 6 times, is to use, I've got a little plastic stitch marker here. You could also just use a piece of leftover yarn. And just use that to mark the last stitch in your round so that you know you can just single crochet happily around the outside. But when you single crochet in this one here, that's the round over and you want to do it 6 times. So that is the end of those 6 rows. And you can see that we've got a dome shape starting to build up. So for row 17, we are going to work 3 repeats of 16 single crochet and then an increase to get us up to 54. And that is the widest point. We're not going any bigger than that. All right, so from row 18 onwards, we're going to start using some decreases. So row 18 is 6 repeats of 7 single crochet and then a decrease, which should lower our stitch count to 48 in total. For row 19, we're going to work 6 repeats of 6 single crochet and then a decrease to bring us down to 42. Then for row 20, we're going to work 6 repeats of 5 single crochet and then a decrease to get us down to 36 stitches. And that's also the last row we're going to be working in our first color. So there we go, that is the end of row 20. And we've worked that's basically the whole body of the outside cat. And so what we're going to do now is we're sort of at this middle point here. We're going to swap colors and we're going to work the exact same dome on the other side so that we have our inside cat as well. So that means that in our next stitch, what we want to do is change colors. Now, if you're working this whole thing in one color, you obviously don't need to change colors at this point. You can just continue on with the instructions, but we are going to stop and change colors. So there are so many ways you can do a color change in crochet, but the way I like to do it, I actually think is really easy. So I'm going to show you that way. So first of all, what you need to know is that row 21 is 6 repeats of 5 single crochet and then an increase, and we're going up to 42 stitches. But in the very first stitch of that row, which is a single crochet, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. So we've got 2 loops of our old color on our hook. We're then going to hold that old color off to one side. So you can see I'm holding it parallel that way. So you can, I've still got the 2 loops on my hook and I've got that yarn going off that way. I'm going to hold my new color alongside it. So I've got both strands being held quite tightly against the work, and I'm pinching it at the base of the stitch, and I'm going to yarn over with the new color and making sure I'm holding that down so I don't pull it all the way through. I pull it through both loops on hook and finish off the stitch. So you can see now that my loop is in the new color. From there, I work the next stitch in the new color as per usual, just like that. And then what you can do is, coming back to your 2 offcuts, is trim them. Just like that. We don't need our yellow for now. And just tie them in a knot to lock them in place. So there you have, we've completely changed colors and we've worked the first 2 stitches of row 21. So I'm just going to continue on with that row now. So it's the end of row 21. You'll note that the second color goes all the way around except for that first stitch where we did the color change. So that is correct in how that's supposed to look. So for row 22, we're going to do 6 repeats of 6 single crochet and then an increase to get back up to 48. Okay, row 23 is 6 repeats of 7 single crochet and then an increase up to 54, which is again the widest point of the second cat as well. For row 24, we're going to do 3 repeats of 16 single crochet and then a decrease to bring us back down to 51. Okay, so now we are back down to 51 stitches. We need to do 6 rows again of each of 51. So just like we did before, so it's rows 25 through 30 are 51 single crochet around each. So break out your stitch marker or your piece of scrap yarn again, and we're just going to grow these sides. Okay, so that's the end of row 30. Row 31 is going to be 3 repeats of 15 single crochet and then a decrease, and we're basically decreasing down to close in this top now, so we have the full potato. Row 32 is 3 repeats of 14 single crochet and then a decrease to get us down to 45 stitches. Row 33 is 3 repeats of 13 single crochet and then a decrease to bring us down to 42 stitches. Now row 34 is 6 repeats of 5 single crochet and then a decrease, which will bring us down to 36, and you'll find that sort of things go very quickly from this point on. And I should just mention, we are not stuffing this. No stuffing goes into the potato at any point. Row 35 is 6 repeats of 4 single crochet and then a decrease to get us down to 30 stitches. Row 36 is 6 repeats of 3 single crochet and then a decrease, which will get us down to 24 stitches. Row 37 is 6 repeats of 2 single crochet and then a decrease, which will get us down to 18 stitches around. Row 38 is 6 repeats of a single crochet and then a decrease to bring us down to 12 stitches. And the final row, row 39, is 6 repeats of a decrease. So we're just going to do 6 decreases around, which should get us down to 6 stitches. Just like that. So that's our final stitch done. So you see we still have this little opening at the top, and we're going to look after that now. So to finish off, what we're going to do is pull this through the loop and snip it, pull through the extra and pull that tight. So now we've got this little tail, and what I'm going to do is in each of these stitches around, I'm going to insert my hook and pull that tail through. We're going to do that 6 times around, making sure that we get every single stitch. Just like that, and pull tightly to close that little hole at the top. So there is our finished potato. So we're going to leave it in potato form right now, though if you're like me and you just can't wait to see what this finished product will look like, you can simply push one side inside the other side. And if you used 2 colours, it's really easy to see where that middle point is. Yeah, so that's your cat body, and you can turn it inside out. And there is your other cat body. But for now, we want it as a potato. So we're going to pop that potato aside. That is part 1 complete. And now we're going to work on making 4 little feet. So as I mentioned, each foot is made in 2 pieces. So we need 8 foot pieces, and 4 in one colour and 4 in the other. So I'm going to make my 4 in purple first, just because I've already got the end of that free. So to start your foot, you need to pull up a magic ring and put 6 single crochet into it. So there's my 6 single crochet in my magic ring. Pull that tail and it forms its little ring. So row 2 of the piece is you need to do 6 repeats of an increase, which will get us up to 12 stitches. And then row 3 is 12 single crochet. So that means 1 single crochet in each stitch the whole way around. Okay, so that is the first piece done. So I'm going to finish off just like that, and I'm going to pop that to one side, and then I'm going to make 3 more exactly the same way in my first colour. So now we have those 4. We are going to make 4 more in your second colour. Okay, so we've made all 8 pieces that we need for our little feet, and I've kind of loosely paired them up too. So now what we're going to do is actually sew them all together. Okay, so you're going to want to pick your favourite of the 2 colours that you're working with. For me, it's just going to be the purple this time, though it could be the yellow. That's not a big deal. And you're going to place them so that they look like a little sandwich. And you'll note that I'm putting the 2 tails so that they meet up at the same point, just like that. I'm just going to stick a little pin through this to help hold it together. It take your favorite of your two colors and thread your needle. And then what we're actually going to do is around each of these little feet, because we'll be repeating this process 3 more times, we're going to sew 3/4 of the way around. So these are 12 stitches around, you're going to sew through 8 of them. Now if you want to, this isn't mandatory, but you'll note that I am just stitching through. You can see that there's sort of 2 stitches. You can stitch through using just the out loops to get a nice clean effect. So there we go, you can see that there's this little opening that I've left. And other than that, we've got a foot that is yellow on one side and purple on the other. Trim and then tuck that little end in to the foot itself. And if you want to, you can choose to use just a tiny little bit of stuffing. So see how much I'm using there? Just a tiny little bit, you don't want it too firm. That is your first foot assembled. So pop that to one side and repeat that process 3 more times. Okay, so there are our 4 little feet. And the next thing we're going to do is actually sew them onto our potato. Okay, so the time has come to turn our potato into a cat. Grabbing it by the rim, push one side into the other. And if you've used 2 colors like I have, this process is very easy to see sort of where that edge should be. What you want to make sure is that the finishing point lines up with the starting point, and then just sort of massage it around to flatten out what's inside. You'll feel what's going on there. It's basically you're pushing all of the wrinkles out so that the inside conforms nicely with the outside, and you want to make sure that not too much of your secondary color is showing as well. So give it a little massage. So there is our cat base. So now we have our 4 little feet that we've sewn together. We've put a little bit of stuffing in one of them, but not the other 3. So I might just do that quickly. See, I've left an opening in each of them. So now you can pick any point along this rim because there is no sort of designated sides or anything. So pick any point along this rim and grab your first foot and place that opening on the rim. So you see how the tails really help sort of separate that little opening out so that it sandwiches on the rim like a... Now I'm going to take some pins and I'm going to pin the yellow side to the yellow, and I'm going to pin the purple side to the purple. Now to position the second foot, what we're going to do is squish it down just like that, and the second foot belongs right here. So there we are. We've positioned 2 of our feet. It's a little bit trickier because I've run my pins along the edge, but you can still sort of flatten out and see where the center point is between. And we're going to pin 1 foot here and 1 foot there. There we go. So that just like that, you have 4 equally placed, or close enough to equally, well let's not quibble here, placed little feet. All right, so I have yellow threaded on one needle and I have purple threaded on the other, and that is because for these feet, we're going to use the yellow to sew the yellow to the yellow, and we're going to use purple to sew the purple to the purple. So it's fairly straightforward, and we're just going to sort of go around and do that to each of these 4 feet now. So as I stitch, you'll note that I'm very carefully only stitching through 1 layer. You'll see on the other side that the needle is not showing through. All right, so that is the yellow of that foot stitched on. Given that I have 2 needles, I'm going to join the purple and do the same thing. Again, being very careful to not stitch through both layers and to only stitch through the layer that's the right color. And I'm going to do what I call the tug test. So because this is a toy designed to be manipulated, you want to be sure that everything is attached really firmly. So I'm going to give it a tug, and you see how it loosened on that side and on that side? It's not sewn down tight enough. So I'm going to put some more stitches in. That's better. So see, I no longer have those openings on the sides. So I am now happy with that foot. Basically, you're going to go around and stitch on the other 3 feet in the exact same way, giving each one the tug test as well, just to make sure that they are secure. All right, so I've gone around and I've sewn on all 4 little feet, and you see that we've got a lot of these little extra spare bits of wool sticking out everywhere. So what you do is you just take your hook and you insert it through in between any of the stitches, and you tuck those little ends inside between the layers. So we're going to go around and we're going to hide all of those little loose ends now. Okay, I think I got them all. So now there's no pins in here, we can give it a go. So that's the little cat in one way, and with these little purple feet out. So there we go. So that is all working wonderfully. That is part 2 completed. Now part 3 is involving ears and tail. So we're going to set his little body aside for a second, though for the record, you can turn him back into a potato if you want to get an idea for what that looks like. Pop that to one side, and I'm going to show you how to make the ears. So for the ears, we actually need to make 2 sets. So we need one set for the purple side and one set for the yellow side. Okay, so I'm going to start with my purple, and we're going to make an ear. So to do so, I'm going to pull up a magic ring with 6 single crochet. So just the same as we've been starting every other piece. So row 2, we are going to do 2 repeats of an increase and then 2 single crochet. So what that means is an increase in this first stitch and then 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then repeat that again. So row 3 is an increase, 4 single crochet, an increase, and then 2 single crochet. So that brings you to 10 stitches around. So row 4 is going to be an increase, 6 single crochet, an increase, and then 2 single crochet. And that should bring us to 12. Row 5 is an increase, 8 single crochet, an increase, and then 2 single crochet, bringing us to 14. And the final row is an increase, 10 single crochet, an increase, and then 2 single crochet, bringing us up to 16. And that is our little ear. So I'm going to finish off. Now the tail in this instance is the front of the ear, and to shape the ear, you want to squish it flat and bend it towards the front a little bit. And so there's your little triangular ear shape. So that's our first ear. We actually need 2 of those in purple, and we also need 2 in yellow. So now the last piece that's missing is we need to make a little tail. So for the tail, we need to make 1 in purple and 1 in yellow. I'm just starting mine in purple. And I pulled up a magic ring, and I'm going to put 6 single crochet into it. So again, I started every single piece of this project with the same first step, and that is a magic ring with 6 single crochet, or the chain method that I showed at the start of the video. So there is our 6. All right, so for row 2, we're going to do 3 repeats of a single crochet and then an increase to bring us up to 9 single crochet in total. So that brings us up to 9. Then what we are going to do is 5 rows of 9 single crochet. So that is 45 stitches in total if you just want to work it as one continuous, just like that. So that is the end of our final row. And now I'm just going to finish off. That is the cute little tail. Now we do make a separate one for the yellow, just like that. So 2 little tails. Okay, so going back to our potato here, you have to work out which side you want to be the face and which side you want to have the tail. It's just a matter of sort of looking at it and seeing what feels right to you, or you can just basically flip a coin and pick one. See, to me, it looks like these feet are facing that way and these feet are facing that way. So one of these is the front and one of these is the back. I think I'll make this one the face just because they both look pretty similar. So if this one's the face, this one here is the butt, which is where the tail goes. So there's no stuffing in the tail, and I've squished it. And what we're going to do is attach it so that the tip of the tail doesn't hang past the opening. And we're going to center it between those 2 little legs. Now you can get sassy with this if you want. You can have it sort of hanging down there. You can stitch it on so that it's straight out. You can have it sticking straight up. But this is my nighttime cat, so I'm going to have its tail down, and then on the yellow I might have it sticking up. And now I'm going to just take my purple thread and stitching through 1 layer only, I'm going to sew this tail on. Okay, so I've removed that pin, and then I'm just turning it up this way, and because it is double layered, you'll see that I've only sewn through the first layer, so I have to go back, now flip it up, go back and sew on the bottom layer as well. Because I'm using a plastic needle, I can keep my finger on the other side of the project at all times so that I can tell if the needle is poking all the way through or if it's skimming underneath that layer the way I want it to be. So it's kind of the beauty of a needle that you can't really hurt yourself with. But I suppose a thimble would work the same way. There we go, so that's sewn on. I'm just going to give it the usual tug test. It's not going anywhere, so that's great. Stop, and once again, tuck your little ends in. Just like that, so you've attached your little purple tail. I'm just going to take this pin out for safety's sake, and we're going to flip it. Now every time you flip it, make sure that you straighten out the inside so that everything is sitting where it's supposed to be sitting and not wrinkled up. So we know that the tails on this side, we want to keep the tails, we want to keep the same butt for both cats basically. So the tail is on this side, and so this is where we will stick our little yellow tail as well. And for the little yellow tail, it's going to be a little sassier. We're going to have it sticking straight up in the air. So now take your yellow and sew that one on as well. Okay, so now we're going to take our ears and position those. Because I'm yellow side out, I'm going to start with those. Make sure that my cat is like the nice little round blobby shape that I want him to be. Identify the front of my ears and how they've got that little curl to them. Either trim these little extra tails off or tuck them inside the ear itself. I'm going to do a combination of both. I'll trim that off to shorten it and then just hide it away in there. We don't want to be dealing with that. And then we're just going to position our ears. Just make sure that you're very, very happy with them as well. So have a look at your cat from all angles and just make sure that the ears look right to you where you've positioned them. When you're happy, start at one edge and stitch around the whole edge of that ear and then do the other one as well. Okay, so I have sewn both those little ears on and I've tucked all of my ends in, and that is actually my yellow cat pretty much complete except for he has no face yet, but we'll get to that. So that is the little yellow cat, who is my day cat, because I'm going for a little bit of a theme. So he's looking very awake and perky. So now we have to do my little night cat. I'm thinking I'm going to do like little side ears. So yeah, basically you can sort of pose this however you like. So there we are. So my little sleepy cat has a down tail. I've also positioned his ears towards the front and just pointing downwards so that he looks a little bit sleepier when he's sitting down. So yeah, now I'm just going to sew those on as well. So now we have sewn on all of our pieces. So we've got one cat and another cat. So that's how easy sort of this design is. So now all we really need to do is stitch on some eyes and a little face. And you can kind of, I'll level with you, I am not the best at this. It would be insulting to anybody out here who is good at embroidery to pretend that I am anybody who should be teaching this. But we're going to give it a go, all right? we're going to have a crack at it. Now, I'm going to do the awake face first. I think that's going to be the difficult one. I'm going to use my pins for this. So I'm going to use pins to sort of mark out where I want the little face to be. One bit of advice I can give is let the stitches sort of help you plot where you want your face to be as well. So that they can help you see if I want something 2 stitches wide over here will be the same width. So that's kind of helpful, right? So I've kind of plotted out a little bit of a face there. So now I guess the only thing to do is to stitch that on, and being wary of the inside, which is kind of a torture chamber right now. We're going to very carefully stitch on a face. Okay, well I tried. So there is my happy sunshine face kitten. And now I need to do just a little sleepy face on the other side, which I'm going to keep really, really simple. And there we go. Like I said, I kept it really simple for Sleepy Cat. Okay, so that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you have a go at making one of these little guys. Today's video was a little bit different from my regular content, and honestly it was a little bit of a challenge to try and sort of strip away all of the sort of fancy tricks that I usually try to use to help sculpt things and just try and keep things really, really simple. So let me know in the comments how I did, or if there was anything else that I should have covered in this video, or if you'd prefer that I didn't try and do this kind of thing again, that's also a valid comment to be making. So I'm not going to be releasing this pattern in my store just because it is just a very, very basic one. It wouldn't feel right. But if you do like my patterns and you do want to support me, I will include a link to my store in this description below, and you can have a look at what's available there. I also release my patterns over on my Patreon, so they get a free copy of everything that I make, and I send those out by email once a month. So if you are looking to get the January patterns, now would be the time to sign up. So yeah, please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Okay, bye. Now, one thing that you can get in the habit of doing is at the end of each row, stop and count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Well, that didn't go to plan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.